In this tutorial, we're going to design a mountain bike from scratch. The method I will show you is a simplified version of the way that I design bikes in Fusion 360. Just with any software, there's going to be a learning curve, and to help you along, I'm going to provide a pre-made CAD so you can reverse engineer it. Also, I broke down the video into steps because I don't expect you to follow at my speed. Another advice, try not to deviate from the tutorial on the first pass. You can always go back and change the geometry and design later. And finally, just with anything, you only get better with practice. I hope that once you've mastered the fundamentals, you can unlock a much better way of designing and building bikes. You'll see that CAD is more precise, and once you have a robust 3D and 2D model, you can make an infinite number of custom bikes, as I'm showing in this example here. I hope you have some fun, and don't be afraid to ask questions. We'll start off with the base sketch. This sketch is going to have all the geometry of your bike. So we create a new sketch, we'll click the right plane, start by drawing a bottom bracket, and we're just going to give the rough double diamond frame. And not going to worry about dimensions right now, just going to get the lines in place. Oops. So you see I accidentally clicked and dragged and created this little curve here, which I don't want, so delete that. So that's the frame, and then now we need to do the fork. So it's really important here that we want the fork to be parallel with the head tube. So you'll see this little parallel constraint, the two lines pop up, and create the headset, and then the fork acts as the crown, and offset. So drag this out so it's a little bit bigger, and I usually make the headset stack construction line so I can see it. So once that's done, we will start adding dimensions to the bike. So the head tube is 110, or sorry, 120 millimeter. Headset stack 14. Axle to crown 531. Offset 44. Bottom bracket drop. So if we click this axle and we click this point and we drag the dimension out here, you'll see we get the vertical dimension, which will be 56. And chainstay length 430. And then reach will be what is it, 450. All right, so you see our bike looks kind of wonky, and that's because the axles are not on the same plane. So what we can do is we can draw, or we can go to the horizontal constraint and click the first axle and the second axle, and then you'll see they're constrained on this horizontal line. Now you see this head tube angle can still change, so we need a reference sketch. So we'll make a horizontal line here, and also at the same time we'll do one down here. Make these construction lines. So the head tube will be 66, and the seat tube will be 74.5, and the seat tube length will be 440. So if you did it all correctly, oh, sorry, bottom bracket, let's just make this 2 inches. So you can type 2 inch and it'll convert it. So if you did this all correctly, the sketch should be black, and that means you're ready to go to the next step. Next, we're going to draw the center lines. So we create a new sketch. Select the plane. And the trick I'm going to use is that I'm going to take the geometry that we created from the base sketch and project that onto the centerline sketch. So I'll go here, create, project and include, project, and I'll select the tubes that we want to project. the head tube, the seat tube, and the chainstay. So then I click OK, and you'll see these purple lines formed. And if I toggle our first sketch, the base sketch, off, you'll see that these are on my new sketch. The next step is to create the center lines of the front triangle. So just like in BikeCAD, we'll define these with an offset. So draw these lines, the down tube, and we'll give this one an offset here. We'll say it's 50, and the top we'll say is 25. Don't worry, we can always go back and change these offsets and the model will update by itself. This one, we'll give it 50. So the next step is the rear triangle, and it's a little bit trickier because we're using the 1.5 millimeter 1.5 inch diameter Paragon dropouts, and they're tricky because they have this 3.5 millimeter offset, so the axle is not concentric to the dropout. It took me a while to figure out how to do this in CAD easily, and I'll show you how to do it. It's still a bit trickier than a concentric dropout, but if you can do this, then you can do anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line that's perpendicular to the chainstay, and we're going to dimension this 3.5 millimeters and 3.5 millimeters. Oops. Sorry. So you see this one is actually a vertical dimension, but we want it to be parallel with the line. So I'll delete that and 3.5. And then I'm going to draw the circle that represents the dropout. And this is 1.5 inches. So again, we'll see the Paragon drawing. It's 3.5 millimeters offset in both directions. So now we need to draw the seat stay. And what I like to do is I like to offset the seat stay. So we take the center of this dropout, the center of the dropout, not center of the axle, and we'll draw a line out here and create a little perpendicular line there. And then we will drag this to the seat tube, give it an offset of 55. Come on, click there. There we go, 55. And over here, we'll give this a 6 millimeter offset. So now I could toggle my base sketch off, and you can see this is what you should be left with, all black and purple lines. And then I will finish sketch. And now this is a good opportunity to rename these sketches. So we'll call this one the center lines. And we'll call this one the base sketch. Next, we're going to draw the head tube. So we're going to insert this as a new component. So if I go to Assemble, New Component, and I give it the name headtube, HT, click OK. And so now you see the rest of the assembly grayed out, and I'm working in my headtube component. So I'm going to draw this on my centerline sketch. So if I click Sketch, select the center plane, then I select the centerline head tube, and I project it. So I can either go to Create, Project Include, Project, or I can just hit P. So if I select this and hit P and click OK, it'll project it. So now I see this purple line shows up in my current sketch. And we're just going to create a very basic 44 millimeter head tube. So I'm going to start by creating a rectangle. And you see here, this is not perpendicular. So I'll go to the perpendicular constraints. Just like that. And these two lines, now it's perpendicular. And now we need to give it a diameter. So one trick you can do is if you select the center line, you could, oops. So this is an annoying thing. Sometimes when you want to select this line, you're selecting the line underneath it. And so you typically need to turn off the old sketch. And so now you can select this purple line. And I'm going to turn this into a center line. When I do that, it allows me to dimension to the center line, and it'll give me a diameter instead of the radius. And for here, I'm going to call this one, 48 millimeters. And then create the inside of this head tube as 44 millimeters. Now here, if you want to, you could add those reinforcement rings. Now would be the time. But I'm leaving that out to keep the tutorial simple. So after I'm done, I'll click Finish Sketch. And then now I need to create a component. So I'm going to go over here to the Revolve tool, select that. It's going to select, or I need to select my profile, and it's probably going to automatically select my axis. Oh, no, it didn't. Select the axis. And now you see here, you have a head tube. So click OK. If I zoom out and I create my centerline sketch again, you see it created it in the right spot. And then now, make sure, this is a mistake that I always make sure you leave the head tube component. So if I go over to the menu here, click on my main assembly, which I called mountain bike demo, click the little bubble, and now you'll see the sketches are not grayed out anymore, and I'm editing the main assembly. So the cool thing, the reason why we do it this way is that if I go to the base sketch, and let's say I change this one to some crazy head tube, like 200 millimeters. Oh, that's not right. 200 millimeters. And I click Finish Sketch, you'll see that the head tube updates automatically with my base sketch. And that's because we projected everything from the base sketch to the centerline sketch to the head tube component. So this is how you can get an intelligent CAD model of your bike. So things back to 120. And I think we're good with this step. Now we're going to draw the bottom bracket and the seat tube. So first we have to make sure that we're in the main assembly and not in the head tube. And so again, to show this, if I'm in the head tube and I click this bubble, you'll see everything else is grayed out. And if I go back to the main assembly, everything's back in color. So we want to be in the main assembly, then we'll assemble new component. We'll call this one bottom bracket BB. And we'll go to create sketch, select the center plane, and draw the bottom bracket. So let's make it 3 millimeters thick and 2 inches in diameter. From there, we're going to extrude this bottom bracket. So we go to the extrude tool, select the bottom bracket shell, and for directions, we'll do symmetric, and for distance, we'll do whole length. And we'll say 73 millimeters. And click OK. And you see here is our nice bottom bracket shell. And again, make sure you go back to the main assembly. So go back out. And now we want to create the seat tube. So I'm going to go do a new component again. Call this one seat tube. And we're going to create a construction plane. So select construct, plane along path, select the seat tube, click OK. And now we can sketch a seat tube. So we'll call the outside 35 and the inside 31.6. Is that the right size? Something like that. And then we're going to extrude, select that. And for the extent, we're going to go to object, and we're going to select the bottom bracket shell. So you see here, we created this, I guess, perfect miter to the bottom bracket shell with the extrude to object feature. And then now we can exit back out to the main assembly. Next, we're going to finish the front triangle by adding the down tube and the top tube. So if we go to assemble, new component. Oh, sorry. Again, make sure you're in the main assembly. New component. Call this one top tube. And very similar to the seat tube, we're going to create a construction plane along path. Select the top tube center line. Drag it to the end. Sketch on this plane. And we're going to give it a top tube diameter of 32 millimeters. Now to keep my model simple, I don't like to make these into actual tubes. So if you wanted to, you could do it that way, but I just like to keep these solid because I found that making them into actual tubes can cause the CAD to break or crash. When that's done, we're going to extrude it. Actually, let me show you a different way of doing it. So instead of extrude, you can do the sweep tool. So if we select this object, if we select the profile and then we select the path, we can sweep it. So it goes all the way that distance. This tool is useful if you have a swoopy tube, like a seat stay or a bent down tube. Click OK. So next we need to trim down these, or we need to miter this top tube. So we'll go to Combine tool, and we'll select the target body, which is our top tube. And we'll select the tool bodies, which are the features that we want to use to cut our object. So we'll click the head tube and the seat tube, and you see here it's already cutting our top tube for us. And one really important thing is to check keep tools, otherwise it's going to delete your head tube and seat tube. So click OK. And now you see it's mitered, and if I go into the top tube bodies, I can find the edges and hide them so I don't see them here and here. And that is the top tube. So I'm going to do the very same thing for the down tube. So make sure you go back to the main assembly, and then we're going to assemble a new component, call this one down tube. And so you see here our base sketch disappeared, or sorry, a centerline sketch disappeared. So if we go back to the menu here under sketches in our main assembly, we can see center lines is hidden. So we show it, and there we see our center lines again. Click plane along path. And now we draw the down tube, and we'll call this one 38 millimeters. Finish sketch. And we will go use the sweep tool again. Select the profile, select the path. It'll create our down tube. Click OK. So now we need to trim it. So we go to Combine, select our down tube, and select our tool bodies. So it's going to be the head tube, the bottom bracket, and the seat tube. And I'm going to click OK. Make sure the keep tools is checked. Okay, so now you see these are nice and trimmed, and then I can go in and hide the bodies that I don't care about. So if I select this one, so body 4 is our actual down tube, and so I'll just hide the rest. And then exit out here, and there you go. So we're going to start by creating a construction plane that is perpendicular to our chainstays. So we'll go to Construct and Plane at an Angle, select the chainstay center line, and rotate it so it's perpendicular, 90 degrees. Next, we're going to rename this to chainstay plane. And then we're going to draw our chainstay center lines on it. So I'm going to start by projecting this center line onto our current sketch. So I'm going to select it, hit P, and click OK. And now we projected that geometry onto our current plane. And we can go and hide our centerline sketches. Now it looks a little bit awkward because we're no longer sketching perpendicular, so we can use the look at tool and then select our chainstay plane. And now we'll be normal to our sketch plane again. I start by drawing an axle. So create a horizontal line, dimension it the boost standard, 148 millimeters, and then I'll go and use the midpoint constraint, this little triangle, select the line and select the point, and now I'll snap it to the midpoint. From there, I'm going to add a little bit of offset, and I'm going to make this a construction line. And now I'm going to draw the chainstay center line. So I'll start with a line, and Fusion has this cool feature where if you click the point and you hold it and drag, you'll create a perfect arc. So you see there's the arc, and there's the second one. Now you see these are a perfectly smooth line. I'm going to dimension the centerline radius. So this is 230 millimeters. And then I'm going to finish constraining my chainstay centerline. So give this offset a dimension, 12 millimeters. And now I need to dimension the angle, 11. And this is a little bit complicated, how you use a yoke, or maybe you need to draw the second bend for your chainstays. But since I create my own yoke, I know the dimensions that it needs. I know the dimensions of the yoke such that the chainstays will interface with it. So I know that this distance, this vertical distance is 89 millimeters, and this horizontal distance is 48.5 millimeters. So ideally this dimension should be fully black, but we can see why, or we can click a point and drag to see why this drawing is not fully constrained. And it's because this angle is still undefined, so we'll constrain it to be parallel with the center line. Now you see the whole drawing is black, so it's fully constrained, and it means that we're ready to move on to the next step. So I'll exit the sketch, and we're now going to add a tire body to represent tire clearance. And so first we're going to go and rename our sketch as chainstay centerlines. And then we're going to right click and edit sketch. So we're back into our chainstay sketch, and we're going to add a tire body, a circle that represents our tire body. So create a circle, dimension it 2.4 inches. Don't know why I'm struggling so much to do this dimension. And then we need a reference point to the outside diameter. So we'll go to create point, and then we'll snap it to the outside. And then we'll dimension the radius of the tire. So I believe I'm going to put 744 divided by 2 millimeters. So that is going to represent our tire body. Click finish sketch, and we're going to revolve. Select the two bodies, or the two sketches, and then select the axis. And then now we have a body that represents our tire. You could draw this with tire knobs or with a little bit extra space to actually represent the tire clearance, but I just wanted to keep it simple for this tutorial. Now we're going to draw the seat stays. We'll start by creating a construction plane. Oh, first you can see our center lines are disappeared, so we can go and reveal them in the tree. Click plane at an angle, select our centerline sketch, and create a 90-degree plane. And click OK. Now we can draw our center lines. So we'll sketch on this new plane. And now I'll show you a little trick to get the tire clearance. So we'll select our tire body, and we go down to project, and we'll actually use intersect. And click OK. So now you see these purple circles appear where our tire body intersects our seat stay plane. And we're going to use these to view our tire clearance. Let's hide that body so we don't see it anymore. And there's our two circles. We delete this one below because we don't need it. And now we can draw our seat stays. So first we'll start by projecting this seat stay centerline from our base sketch, or sorry, our centerline sketch. And we can hide that sketch so we don't get confused. And now it's a little bit awkward because we're not normal to. So we'll click look at and then select our seat stay plane. Start by drawing the axle. So this is going to be a midpoint constraint and 148 millimeters. Next, we're set a little bit of offset. Dimension this, or first we'll make it in a construction line so we don't get confused, and then dimension this as 14 millimeters. Then we'll go up to the top and create an offset up here as well. Dimension it to be 10 millimeters and make it a construction line. So now we're ready to draw the seat stay center lines. So we'll start at the top, create a sketch, click and drag, and draw the second one. I'm going to purposely do it wrong to show you how to fix it. So you see here you have this sharp bend in the line. And so to fix that, we'll go up to the top and choose the tangent constraint and make these two lines tangent. Next, we'll take that point, drag it down to this intersection. And unfortunately, our little radius became really small. So let's see if we can fix it. Let's zoom in all the way and drag it. There we go. And now we'll give this a dimension of 115 millimeters. So that's the centerline radius. Start positioning it so it looks right. And then now we could add the angle dimensions. So dimension this one to be 97 degrees. And then the bend will start off with 12. And we can tweak these two angles to adjust our tire clearance. So I think we need a tiny bit more clearance. 96. Play around with this one a little bit. Oh, that was the wrong direction. So we'll increase the bend angle. 14 is not enough. 16 looks about right. And there you have our seat stay center lines. Don't forget to go back and give these center lines a name. So go to the sketch menu and call this seat stay center lines. Next, we're going to create the chainstay and seat stay tubes. So we'll start and create a new component. Call this one chainstay and hit OK. So the process I'm going to use is very similar to the front triangle. So I'm not going to narrate it too much. So you can see I use plane along path, and I'll draw the profile, give it 19 millimeter dimension. Finish the sketch. Then I use the sweep tool, select the profile, select the center line, and click OK. So now you see we have our chainstay, and we're going to want to make the dropout miter. So the trick I'm going to use is I'm going to go back to our centerline sketch where we drew our dropout. We'll reveal this circle, and I'm going to use this circle to cut our chainstay. So if I go to extrude, and then I select my circle, and I'm just going to drag it out and miter our chainstay. Now we're going to create the non-drive side chainstay by using the mirror tool. So to create, go down to mirror, and then we're going to select our body, which is our drive side chainstay, and select the mirror plane, which is the center plane, and then hit OK. And then now you see we have two chainstays. So make sure you go back to the main assembly and click the bubble. And now we're back and ready to do the seat stays. The seat stays are basically the same as the chain stays. So we'll create a new component, call this one seat stays, hit OK. And very similar to the seat stay, or sorry, the chain stays in the front triangle, we'll start by this perpendicular plane and draw our profile. and we'll give this 16 millimeters. We're going to use the sweep tool to sweep this profile along the path. And click OK. So now we're going to miter this seat stay. Same way as chainstay, we'll use our centerline sketch, drop out, and cut the seat stay. And then we're going to use the combine tool, select our target body, which is our seat stay, and then select the seat tube. And use the seat tube to trim our seat stay. And we can go and hide that little nub. And now we have our drive side seat stay, and we're going to go ahead and mirror it. Select the seat stay, mirror, hit OK. And then go back to the main assembly, and there you have it. We have our chainstays and seat stays drawn. Next, we're going to add the dropouts and the yoke. I'm going to warn you that the dropouts are a little bit messy, but this is the way that I found works the best. And the easiest way is just to show you. So I'm going to start by dragging my dropout into my assembly. Click OK. I'm going to move it so I can see a little bit better. And so the trick I use is I have this reference sketch on this dropout that helps me align it both in the center and the rotation to my sketch. So you see, I'm going to reveal the center lines, and I'm going to use this reference sketch to join it to the centerline sketch. So I'm going to joint. I'm going to select the center of this line, and I'm going to select the center of this chainstay. And now I'm going to rotate it. Oh, it's facing the wrong way, so I'm going to flip it and rotate it so it is 0 degrees. Oh, there we go. And then I'm going to offset it the boost distance. So actually half the boost distance. So 148 divided by 2. So now you see my drive side dropout is perfectly aligned with the chainstay. I'm going to do the same for the non-drive side. So click, drag it in, move it somewhere where I can see it, click OK. And I'm going to reveal the sketch. And I'm going to join. Select the axle location again. Select the center line, rotate this so it's correct, and then offset it half the boost distance. So negative 148 divided by 2. Okay. And there you have the two dropouts. And now the yoke is much easier because we designed the chainstays to interact or interface with the yoke perfectly. So I'm going to grab the yoke, drag it in, click OK. And I'm going to join the center of this plug to the chainstay. Click OK. And then I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to hide all my sketches so it looks good. And then hide my joints. And there you have it, a completed frame. So the joining is actually probably the hardest part about Fusion. And I'm going to provide a dummy model with all the dropouts and yokes already joined to a sketch. That way you don't have to struggle to figure that out. And you could just reverse engineer that file to see how I do the joints. Cool. Now you should have a completed CAD model of your bike. And now we can play around with it and show you why I think Fusion is the best way to design bikes. So let's zoom in here and take a look at the seat stay. This seat stay to me looks a little bit close to the edge of this dropout, and it could be pushed back a little bit more. So we can go to the centerline sketch and change this offset from 6 millimeters to 8. That should push the seat stay back a little bit, and it's still a little close to the edge. So we'll edit the seat stay centerline, and we can pull it in 3 millimeters. Let's make it 11. And now you see the seat stay falls on a nice spot on the dropout. Similarly, you can see the chainstay is a little bit close to the inside of this dropout. So I'll just go to the chainstay centerline sketch, edit sketch, and bump it out 2 millimeters. Let's change this to 14. Click OK. And now we see it's a nice spot on the dropout. We can also double check our tire clearance by showing our tire sketch. And you see that it looks pretty good. It looks about 10 millimeters of clearance, 8 millimeters clearance. And if we really wanted to nitpick it, we could actually draw the clearance onto this tire. And just for example, I think we could pull in the clearance a tiny bit. So I can change this to 97. And then I'll change this to 14. Make it, I think the bend can come lower. 13. Click OK. Nice. It's a little tighter. And then what's cool is that if I edit the base sketch, I can make this bike any size that I want. And sometimes the model falls apart, but it's pretty easy to fix once you figure out why it breaks. And let's make this a really small bike and see if the model can handle it. Oh, there you go. It worked. So yeah, now I have a CAD model of a smaller bike. See here, I think this head tube nub can be a little bit shorter. So I'll go to the centerline sketch, edit this, and I can pull this up 5 millimeters to 20, and maybe even more. Oops. 18. Yep. And there you have it. You're done.